Hi there, my name is Eli, and welcome back to my channel, Draculijah. And it is a new year. It is beginning of February, and I wanted to talk about the current state of Monster High G1 alumni dolls in 2025. So when I refer to like the G1 alumni dolls, I'm referring to G1 dolls since the revival of the brand since 2020. Okay, so since 2020, when we got our Skullector dolls like Pennywise and the Grady twins, we have since had many more G1 collector releases that have transpired and continued to be released. And we're now in our 6th year of G1 releases, which is really, really cool. We had 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and our 6th year, 2025. So 6 years into Monster High G1 collecting, I kind of want to just take a moment and see where we are in the collecting landscape, sort of give my opinion on how things are doing. And one of the big reasons that I'm even making this video in the first place is there was a really interesting kind of subtle change that came about this year with our first G1 release, and that was the Skullector Venus McFlytrap doll. Now, that is why I am making this video, because why is that doll called Skullector Venus McFlytrap? Now, it might seem silly, it might seem nonsensical, but to me, like, these naming conventions of the dolls are pretty important. You know, as collectors, we use these names and categories and subtitles to sort of like differentiate these dolls and who they are and, you know, what box they belong into as far as like the Monster High doll collecting atmosphere goes. And so the fact that that doll, that Venus McFlytrap doll, was referred to or called or labeled or categorized as a Skullector doll, to me is very intriguing. And I feel like there's something bubbling under the surface there for the future of G1 that I kind of want to discuss and talk about, because, you know, Venus was released kind of celebrating once again a new year, and to go alongside, you know, renewing new memberships for the Monster High Fang Club, which is Monster High's sort of like annual subscription service where you pay $10 a year, you join the Fang Club, and you get tons of perks. I don't know, you get early access and exclusive dolls and an exclusive Fang Club forum that you can use on Mattel Creations. Basically, there is a doll that they use to celebrate and, you know, that annual Fang Club membership. This was the first one we had 2 years ago, and this doll, I would refer to this doll, this Ghoulia, if I were to look at her, as Fang Club Ghoulia or Gulux Ghoulia. She has like her own subtitle, right? I think the operetta that also released has her own subtitle, if I'm not mistaken. It's like Frights Out or Out of Fright or something like that. I don't know. I don't have that operetta. But you would also call that operetta like Fang Club Operetta. So the fact that Venus was not just called Fang Club Venus and then given some sort of like subtitle, like, you know, like Eco Punk Venus or something. I don't know. You know, Night Gala, I'm just coming up with something off the cuff. I don't freaking know. But the fact that she was instead just called and labeled as Skullector Venus McFlytrap is bizarre. Because up until this point, Skullector dolls, you know, I have a Skullector doll behind these dolls right here, Jack and Sally, were typically reserved for dolls that were collaborations with different types of horror and spooky, macabre themed IPs. So think like, you know, Pennywise the Clown from It. We had Greta Gremlin. We've had Chucky and Tiffany from Child's Play. We've had Morticia and Wednesday. We've had Hocus Pocus, right? So we've had some like more family-friendly character collaborations like Hocus Pocus and Nightmare Before Christmas, and we've had some more adult horror scary collaborations like Annabelle, you know? But Skullector was typically solely reserved for those dolls, and that seems to no longer be the case. And I kind of get why Monster High is making these naming convention changes. There were 2 incidences in 2024 as far as naming conventions go that were kind of confusing. The first one being the RuPaul Dragon Queen doll. People weren't sure if that was a Skullector doll. Like, I think Monster High themselves at times referred to RuPaul as a Skullector doll, but RuPaul sort of broke a couple of the standard patterns and rules that we came to know from Skullector dolls. Number one, RuPaul was also available on Amazon, which was kind of out of the ordinary, and she also had a lower price point than typical Skullector dolls, which isn't a bad thing. But, you know, there's patterns that we recognize. I think Skullectors, like if it's a single Skullector, is like $65 or $75. The price might have gone up. I'm not too sure. And then the 2-packs are like $90, but I'm pretty sure RuPaul retailed for like $50. So right out the gate, we're like, what is RuPaul? Like, is RuPaul a Skullector? Is RuPaul not a Skullector? Also, like, RuPaul is a celebrity, yes, but not necessarily a celebrity known for being especially spooky in the same way that, like, say, Elvira would, be more of like a spooky Skullector themed collaboration. So we just weren't sure. I wasn't sure, like, what is the RuPaul Dragon Queen doll categorized as? And then the second release would be the Wednesday Netflix show releases. That one was pretty unique because they were sort of like more playline oriented. They weren't playline prices, trust and believe. I think the standard Wednesday dolls, like the Wednesday and Enid, were like $45, and then the deluxe Wednesday was maybe $65. I might be a little off on my prices here. Okay, I'm just speaking from memory, but it was a very different type of release, right? They were it was just a different approach than what we've come to know from typical Skullector dolls. But once again, they've done a collaboration with Addams Family before, so kind of fits the bill for what we expect a Skullector doll to be. But I don't think people would refer to those Netflix Wednesday dolls as Skullector dolls. They're just kind of their own thing, you know what I mean? So the naming conventions have already been getting a little foggy and a little fuzzy and a little blurred. So the fact that Monster High made this change, I get it. Do I like it? That I'm not so certain about. Like what's gonna fall under that Skullector branch and umbrella? They haven't really been too clear with us fans, like what those changes entail. So this is me sort of just theorizing and talking out loud and trying to process this information and figure out like what is Monster High and Mattel's intention for making such a random and subtle name change. So real quick, I kind of want to look back and kind of look at all of the G1 lines that we've had in this 5 years of the brand sort of getting revived and determine whether or not those dolls are going to be continually made, and if they are going to continue, do they fall under the Skullector branch or not? Now, the first one is the Skullectors, right? The OG Skullectors, right? The one I have right behind me, Jack and Sally, things like, Creature of the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein and the future Beetlejuice 2-pack. I'm sure those are sticking around, and I'm sure they're still going to be referred to as Skullectors, but I do wonder, as fans, are we going to then just create new naming conventions to differentiate like the OG Skullectors versus new Skullector dolls? Because when you're talking about Skullector dolls, having like Jack and Sally in the same conversation as Venus McFlytrap, they just don't really feel like they belong, right? And so I liked how Skullectors were typically referred to in the past as like, horror, macabre collaborations, and that is no longer the case. So I just wonder if, because of these naming conventions that Monster High is implementing, if us as a community, if us as fans, if we're just going to then create our own naming conventions to further make things more clear to understand, right? Because I like clarity. I kind of like things being easily understood with just a simple description. I don't want it to have to be like, oh, the old Skullector pre-2025, pre-Venus McFlytrap. Like, I don't want to have to add all these like sub-clauses to me trying to explain something, you know what I mean? So the OG Skullectors, I'm pretty sure we can count on those being around for a long time. I think Monster High definitely loves Skullector dolls. Once again, the OG Skullector dolls, they seem to be very, very popular. They seem to be quick sellouts, and they seem to be kind of like a staple bread and butter doll line in this new era of alumni G1 Monster High doll collecting. So I don't expect those to go anywhere. But I do wonder if they will get some type of name adjustment to go along with this larger overarching Skullector name change. I'm curious, but we shall see. Now, next up is kind of two categories. I'm going to combine these two categories, being the Boo Original Creep Productions and the Real Drama dolls. I'm combining them because they're kind of at the same price point, $25. And Real Drama is sort of like a black and white take on the Creep Productions anyways. Now, I don't think Creep Productions are going to be given this title or this subcategory of Skullector doll, because Skullector is the Monster High pun version of a collector doll. And to me, when I think of a collector doll, I think of a certain price point, right? I'm thinking low end like 45 to 50, midpoint like 65 to 75, high end like 90 to 100. So I think dolls in those ranges of price points can be categorized as a Skullector doll. But because Creep Productions and Real Drama are retailing for $25, I don't really think they would get that Skullector sort of category or title. So I don't think we have to worry about that for the Creep Productions. We also seem to be getting tons and tons of Creep Productions lately. Just last year we had Wave 2 as well as a restock of Wave 1. And in like a couple months or so, we're getting Wave 3, which is rumored to have, well, not rumored, we actually saw leaks for Operetta, Toralei, and then we're supposed to get Nephra and the Werecat twins in a 2-pack. So it seems like Creep Productions, kind of like the OG Skullector, are sort of standard bread and butter releases for Monster High. And truth be told, I love Creep Productions, but I have like a weird relationship and opinion on Creep Production dolls, in just the fact that like I think they are really good for like nostalgia bait to like bring old fans back to the brand and get them reinvigorated in Monster High, right? Like I think the idea for Creep Productions and even Real Drama, I guess, from like a Mattel Monster High sort of like design or corporate perspective is that because these dolls are directly tapping into dolls that people had when they were either kids or younger, sort of harkening back to like, the good old days. They're a really easy and effective way to bring people back to the brand. And then once they buy a Creep Production, they're going to be like, oh, but I didn't know there was a Comic-Con doll. And I didn't know, oh, they made this doll. And maybe I'll buy G3 dolls too because I went to Target and I saw a G3 doll. Like, they're a really good gateway into collecting other types of Monster High dolls, right? And honestly, my other hot take is I almost wonder what the profit margin is for Creep Productions because they're only $25 and I think they're pretty good quality. I don't know if anything's adjusted for inflation, but I can't imagine that they make that much money off of them. And if you look at Amazon when things get released, like it'll tell you how many sold in a week. And during like the Wave 1 restocks, they were selling like thousands and thousands of Creep Productions on Amazon, like a ton of Creep Productions. And even with how many they were making and how many they were probably selling, there was still fan outcry that like there were not enough Creep Production dolls. So I feel like Mattel is willing to sort of take a little bit of like a cut as far as profits go because Creep Productions probably do so much for the brand long term when you're looking at the big picture. So because of that, I don't see Creep Productions going anywhere anytime soon, right? We're probably going to get Wave 4 with like Rochelle, Rebecca, Venus, who knows what other characters we're going to get brought back. I don't know how far this will go. Like, are we going to eventually get to like, Kiyomi? Are we going to get Lorna? Like, who else are we going to get made into Creep Production dolls? River Styx? Like, who knows, right? I don't know how far it'll go, but they seem to be very, very good for the brand. And as good as they are for the brand, I still don't think they're going to be called Skullector dolls. But next category of G1 alumni dolls that we've had that I want to talk about that I think are pretty interesting is the Haute Couture line of dolls. Haute Couture has such like a weird bumpy history. When they released back in, 2022? Funny enough, I don't think they were like that well received, which I think people would be shocked to hear. And funny enough, I wasn't even collecting at the time. I started collecting like a couple months after the 2022 Haute Couture dolls were released. But that first wave of Draculaura, Claudine, and Frankie Stein, I think people loved the dolls like design-wise, but there was a lot of pushback at the price because I think people were still under this impression that like when G1 dolls were getting brought back and revived, that they would be at a playline price. And I think people were like, oh, these look like new playline looks. Why are they $75, right? And so initially, I think there was a lot of, shell shock, sticker shock to those prices. And some people did not like that. But now, like I said, 6 years into G1 dolls being around, there's a lot more, I guess, just acceptance for the prices of these dolls. We've had dolls now retail as high as $150. So like 75 is on the low end, right? But if we look at the history of those dolls and their release aside, now they've kind of become very well revered and very popular. Draculaura especially. I think they're all pretty good. If we're looking at the first wave of dolls, I think Claudine and Frankie are gorgeous. And then we had like a part 2 of those dolls get released later that year. Like I would say like wave 1 A and then wave 1B, with 1B being Cleo and Laguna getting added to the Haute Couture lineup. I like both of those dolls. Cleo's screening is a little weird. I think Laguna's pretty. But I loved that initial slate of 5 Haute Couture dolls. I loved. And I think them getting categorized as Skullectors it would make sense. The problem is, I don't think Haute Couture dolls are getting made anymore, because in 2023, when we had, what was it, like the Midnight Runway dolls, they flopped. And it was sad. I didn't purchase any of them. They didn't really make a splash. I think maybe like 2 weeks ago, Cleo finally sold out after like 2 years of being available. Like, those dolls were not moving. And that was after many holiday sales on Mattel's website. Like, they just weren't popular, and it was really, really sad. I think Haute Couture had so much potential. I still think it has so much potential. I think the packaging is gorgeous. I love the metallic foiling. I love the coffin-shaped packaging. It's very, very sturdy. You can display it very easily. I just think the packaging was gorgeous. Some of the best G1 alumni doll packaging we've had. And I would not be upset if in the future, whether that's 2025 or beyond, if Haute Couture did make a return, but if they expanded it, like carried on with new characters like the first wave, right? If we got like a Ghoulia Haute Couture doll, Abby Abominable Haute Couture doll, like other characters added to that slate of that slate of dolls, like a Venus Haute Couture doll would be so cool, like a revamped core look for Venus. I would love that. And I know some fans feel like they've kind of done that, like Haute Couture light, right? Like some people try to claim this Venus, or not Venus, I'm sorry, this Ghoulia doll right here feels like she could be, Haute Couture adjacent. I see it, but I want the same packaging. I just want it to feel cohesive, right? Like I want it to feel like one cohesive doll line. And, the way they're carrying on the Creep productions and following with, new characters, I want them to take that mindset, but give it to us with Haute Couture. I don't know why they pivoted and did Midnight Runway as soon as they did. Like when they announced that, I was like, so we're not getting other characters, like we're not getting anyone else. So that was very disappointing. But I definitely think Haute Couture could come back. I think it could be a smash, and it being under that Skullector sub-branch or categorization would make sense to me. Next slate of dolls that I want to talk about are the Comic-Con dolls. So every year during San Diego Comic-Con, Mattel releases a Comic-Con doll, and in the modern era, they are pretty easy to collect because they're both available at the convention itself, as well as online at Mattel Creations, and I really like the Comic-Con dolls. I think they're really, really cool. They came back in 2022 with Voltage's Frankie Stein, which is both sort of like an homage to Black and White Frankie, but like a new take on it, but also referencing Power Ghouls. Like it was a lot going on. I love her. She's gorgeous. I kept mine in box right here. Unfortunately, when I attended the con that year, I didn't know about, the design team signing the dolls and everything, so I didn't get her signed, but I still love her. And then I did also pick up Freak to Chic Draculaura. I have 2 Freak to Chic Draculauras. I unboxed one and then kept my signed one in box. I just had a really good year at that Comic-Con, and I was like, let me just buy one more. I love this doll. So I love Freak to Chic Draculaura, and she was sort of an extension upon a G1 doll line, right? We had Freak to Chic in G1, gorgeous doll line, and then this Comic-Con in 2023, they were like, what if we added Draculaura to Freak to Chic? What would she look like? And she's a trapeze artist, and she's gorgeous, and she's just stunning. And then in a similar vein, 2024, last year, we had a new dead fast Ghoulia Yelps, who I love. My Ghoulia's in box. Her box is too big to fit in the frame. I did want to put her in the frame, but she's just too big. But that doll was also gorgeous. Once again, kind of like the Black and White Voltages, was sort of paying, homage to the first dead fast Ghoulia doll that was released at Comic-Con many moons ago. And she, I think, is my favorite of the Comic-Con dolls. The first 2 Comic-Con releases, Voltages and Freak to Chic, were both sort of dipping their toes in old G1 playline themes, which I think is fun, but I like things to be fresh. And even though Deadfast was kind of a modern revamp of the first Comic-Con doll, she just fits the bill for Comic-Con because it's very meta, right? She's attending the in-universe Monster High NecroCon, and she's a nerd, and she's cosplaying, and it's just, for me, it feels on theme for Comic-Con. Like, these two aren't necessarily Comic-Con themed dolls, even though they are Comic-Con releases, but Deadfast Ghoulia is like, she's Comic-Con themed, and I love that. And I expect us to keep getting Comic-Con dolls in the near distant future. I'm sure we're going to get one this year at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. I am attending. I'm going Thursday and Friday, so can't wait. It's a little far out in July, but very excited. And I'm sure we're going to get a new Comic-Con doll, and I'm sure she's going to get recategorized as a Skullector doll. Either way, they're so unique and ubiquitous because they were around during the heyday of G1 Playline dolls that I think they'll forever just be referred to as Comic-Con dolls. So them getting the added like title of Skullector, it's cool, it's fine, but I don't really think it shakes things up for them all too much. Now, the next doll line in the slate of G1 alumni releases is Holiday dolls. Holiday dolls are interesting. I think when Holiday dolls were released, there was a lot of hype for them because it was Draculaura. She was the first Holiday doll. She was the winter-themed Holiday doll. And Holiday, is the Monster High punny version of, a holiday doll. And they only did it for 3 different holiday seasons. We had winter, we had Day of the Dead, and we had Valentine's Day. I kind of always wish they did like a Halloween holiday, kind of like G1's Scarily Ever After line, like the dolls in costumes or something. I thought that would have been really cool. And I don't know, I just associate Monster High with Halloween because Halloween's spooky and monsterific, and it feels very in sync with Monster High. So I was kind of always shocked they never did that. And I know Day of the Dead is close calendar-wise, but it's still a separate holiday. I feel like Holiday is unfortunate, okay? Like I said, Draculaura was a smash. When this doll first came out, people loved her. She was selling out. She was hard to find. She was highly coveted. But every subsequent release after Draculaura was just kind of downhill. That's not to say that I didn't like them and that I didn't enjoy them personally, but if I'm just speaking from like fan reception and how I think things went combined with how quickly things sold out, etc., they just didn't do well. The Holiday Claudine did not do well. The Skelita dolls I think did fine, but the first Skelita doll was just kind of the outfit was really, really bad. And then the most recent Skelita Day of the Dead doll last year in 2024 was gorgeous, but I don't know. She just didn't make much of a splash. Same thing with the Holiday doll last year for the winter season, Cleo. Gorgeous doll, but no one talked about her. I think she's really pretty. I didn't buy her. I skipped out on her. She just was like, yeah, she was there. She exists, right? And then probably one of the, most looked down upon G1 releases is the Valentine's Day holiday dolls. People thought they were a little tacky, a little gaudy, a lot of printed fabric. They were 2-packs, and I think on paper they should have been amazing 2-packs. The first one being Cleo and Deuce, and the second one being Draculaura and Claude, but not really big sellouts, not very popular, didn't make a huge splash. And I think Holiday just kind of faltered doll after doll, release after release. And I think they are good for the collecting sphere because they are, like I said, that mid-tier price point, like $45 to $50. So little less of a commitment to like, say, a $65, $70 priced doll. So the price point I think is their greatest strength, but I just don't think the dolls and the designs themselves were that striking for fans to want to get them. Funny enough, when we were getting holiday dolls, I think the allure and appeal and sort of the freshness of Monster High G1 dolls being back on the market was starting to fade. And I think Monster High themselves sort of got complacent with this idea that like people love Monster High dolls, especially G1 dolls, that like we can release anything and it'll do well and it'll sell and it'll be popular. And unfortunately, I think Holiday proved them wrong that that's not the case. I think we're starting to get so many G1 doll lines that, people are getting a little bit more picky with what they decide to pick up, myself included. I'm not a G1 completionist. I'm not trying to buy every single G1 doll that gets released. I'm really only trying to pick the ones that speak to me, that I like, that whose designs, excite me. So Holiday was a weird turning point for the G1 alumni dolls, not for the better, I'd say. And last year, 2024, we had some holiday dolls. 2025, we would have expected to have seen the Valentine's Day 2-pack by now. We don't have it. It's not here. we're probably not getting it. I'll be shocked if we get a winter doll or a Day of the Dead doll. But for the current time, I would say holidays sort of in limbo, or maybe just put on the back burner, put on pause. Maybe it'll come back. And if it does come back, I think it would fit perfectly fine under the Skullector sort of naming, category. But for now, I don't think we're going to see holiday dolls in the near future, and I'm okay with it. Next up, we have the Fang Vote dolls. So we've had 2 Fang Vote dolls so far. 2 years ago, we had Rochelle Fang Vote, and last year we had the Jennifer Fang Vote. And the idea of Fang Vote dolls is that if you are in the Fang Club, you can vote on a Monster High doll to get created. It's like you, as a fan of Monster High, get to participate in the design process for these dolls. And so, you get to vote on various aspects. You get to vote on their makeup and their hair and their fashion. And then eventually these dolls will get made. I do think Fang Vote is really, really fun, but the one huge glaring downside to Fang Vote dolls is the production time. Now, I know with Jennifer, they try to tweak some things where they're like, oh, we're going to have both options for your voting. You're going to have them like pretty deep into the production process. That way we can, get things up and running a lot quicker, but it still took like a year. So like, I don't know if it worked all too well, but that's the one, I think, glaring, pretty awful downside to the Fang Vote dolls, is that it's really fun to vote on the doll, but it's not fun to buy a doll and then wait a year for that doll to get made and delivered to you. That's just not a fun experience. So who knows where the current state of Fang Vote dolls are going to be in 2025. Typically right now around this time of year is when they would announce the Fang Vote dolls. So I'm kind of nervous. Part of me is thinking we're not going to get a 2025 Fang Vote doll. I've heard nothing about it. Maybe I'll eat my words and like the day I post this video, Monster High is going to announce to the 2025 Fang Vote doll. But I would not be surprised if the Fang Vote doll gets recategorized as a Skullector doll. It fits the bill. It's an expensive collector doll. Last year's Fang Vote doll was like $100. Very, very expensive, but very, very worth it. That doll was stunningly gorgeous, and I really like Fang Vote. So fingers crossed that we get one this year, but I don't know. It's not looking too good. Now, the next G1 alumni doll that I actually think fits this Skullector name change convention the best is what I'm going to refer to as like one-off releases. Like misfit dolls that didn't really fit under any large overarching series of dolls, right? Like Couture was this series. It had multiple releases with many dolls under its lineup. Same thing with Skullector, same thing with Fang Club, same thing with Fang Vote. Like if a doll line gets a second release, it sort of inevitably becomes a series of dolls, but these dolls are just one-off singular releases. So think Stitched in Style Frankie Stein, think Vampire Heart Draculaura, even think of last year's 2-pack Mummy Majesties with Cleo and Nephra. All of those dolls are just random one-off releases that don't really fit anywhere in the G1 landscape. They're just kind of their own unique thing. And they're all beautiful, gorgeous dolls, but I do think they would benefit from this naming convention change of like referring to them as Skullector dolls. I think them getting maybe a larger category that they can fit under would help them out. And that does excite me because I like these one-off releases, but I do think Monster High was probably very aware that they sort of just didn't belong anywhere. Like they were just kind of awkward fitting into the larger collecting landscape. So I think this change will greatly benefit them, and if it means we get more dolls like Vampire Heart Draculaura, then I am totally okay with it. One of the interesting things overall about this name change that I think is very, very smart on Mattel's end is there are a lot of collectors who like naming conventions where people are completionists and want to buy and complete all of the dolls under a certain series or a certain name, right? No one feels incentivized to buy Stitch and Style Frankie if she doesn't really fit anywhere. But if you collect all Skullector dolls going forward from this point, and this doll is called a Skullector doll, then maybe you would be incentivized to purchase her where otherwise you might not have wanted her in the first place, right? I'm sure there's lots of people who impulsively buy dolls that maybe they don't love, they have issues with, but it's because like they feel compelled to. They're like, oh, well, I'm a completionist. I'll buy them. I don't love them. I have some qualms and some issues, but because I love Monster High dolls, sure, I'll give it a go. So I do think sort of categorizing everything as a Skullector doll does psychologically kind of affect collectors and the way we think about our dolls, right? It's really subtle and it seems really stupid, but I think there is something there to it. Okay, the next category of dolls that I want to talk about are what I'm referring to as fashion house dolls. So think like Off-White dolls and the Harris Reed Witch Weaver doll. Those are dolls that are collaborations with high fashion brands. And these dolls are interesting. It's kind of hard for me to gauge if these are beloved. And I think Monster High is feeling the same thing right now because very recently they launched a poll to Fang Club members, and the poll was basically to gauge interest on fashion collaboration dolls, if fans and collectors like these dolls or if we don't like them. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Like, I think this doll right here is gorgeous. What's her name? Harmony Ghoul. I think that's her name. I love her. She was one of the Off-White dolls, but this doll is $150. She's very expensive. She was a gift for me during Christmas time, so she's very sentimental, and I love her. But I couldn't imagine myself paying $150 for a doll. But, the fact that it was a collaboration with a high-end fashion brand, I understand the price point. Also, I don't really know a lot about Off-White. I just didn't have any prior knowledge of Off-White, and that's kind of funny because I collected Rainbow High, and they were wearing knockoff, like, Rainbow High versions of Off-White. Like, I only now know that, like, Poppy Rowan and Skylar Bradshaw were very heavily inspired by Off-White, and I didn't even know it until these dolls. And then the Harris Reed Witch Weaver doll is pretty cool. It's kind of a fashion doll, yes, but also it's like a testament to just the LGBTQ plus community as well, with like it sort of being a very unique doll on a male body, but very feminine presenting, and it's a very cool doll. But I just don't know where these sort of fashion collaboration dolls stand in the future of G1 Monster High. I don't know if there's anything planned for 2025. I haven't heard about any rumors or leaks. And based on the poll that Mattel themselves launched as part of their fan club, asking about these fashion collaborations, I'm not too sure if Mattel themselves really know what they want to do with that branch or that avenue of G1 dolls. So we shall see. I'm not opposed to it. I just hope if we do get more fashion house collaborations, they're not as pricey as Off-White dolls. These 4 dolls are still in stock on Mattel Creations. They went on sale this past Christmas time on Mattel Creations, still didn't sell out. They are just so expensive. And I would love, I think it was Symphony Midnight, the one with like the translucent skull. Gorgeous. I would love her. But just, she's so pricey. She's so pricey. Next up, there's probably one category that a lot of people forget because it didn't make a huge splash, but that is the designer series. Do you know what doll I'm talking about when I say designer series? Does that spark anything in your mind? Did you think Lenore Lumington, or did you forget about her? Because a lot of people forgot about Lenore Lumington, myself kind of included. I did not buy Lenore. Here's the thing about the designer series and Lenore Lumington. I like the spirit of that release. I like the spirit of it because I feel like a lot of the landscape for G1 alumni collector dolls, or Skullector dolls, I should say, sort of relies on nostalgia and relies on the fact that this is a very, revered brand that people will maybe forgive certain faux pas or flaws because it's Monster High and it's G1 and it's, come on, how, there's a lot of like emotion attached to it. And I think Lenore maybe didn't make a splash because there was no nostalgia for that character, because she was a brand new character, which I think is really, really cool. I think it's really cool for them to be like, you know what, we're not making playline dolls, we are making collector dolls, but that doesn't mean that we can't just create new characters and give them new stories and expand, the Monster High G1 universe, right? They did make new characters for the Off-White dolls, yes, but like they weren't well received either. And Lenore felt like a more intentional way of creating a new character. I think she was inspired by like an Edgar Allan Poe poem, and she's a garden ghost. Like, I think she's really cool. Just the styling and the design of Lenore didn't speak to me, so I didn't purchase her, but her screening's beautiful. And like I said, I really like the designer series conceptually. Like, I like the spirit of what that holds for Monster High, but sadly, I don't think Lenore sold too well. And I haven't said this, it's kind of, I'm stating the obvious here, but money talks. Money talks, okay? What sells well is what's going to get made. What doesn't sell well is what's not going to get made. So when I was talking about Couture and the Midnight Runway dolls not selling out, because those 3 dolls did not do well, did not sell out, we didn't get any more Couture dolls after that. Why would Mattel be like, you know what, we released 3 dolls and they made us very little returns, they weren't well liked, they were heavily critiqued, let's make more. Like, they're not going to want to make more. So the designer series and Lenore, while I think in spirit she's a really, really good place and direction for G1 dolls to go in, because it's something that's not banking on nostalgia, it's something that's banking on originality. Unfortunately, she didn't sell well, so I don't think we're gonna get any more designer dolls or, you know, designer series and new characters introduced to G1. But I really like the concept, so I'm holding out hope. Like, maybe someone on the design team is pushing hard for a really great idea, and it'll break through, and then everyone will love it, and we'll get more and more new original characters added to the G1 lineup. But that's just kind of the sad thing. Like, when we're talking about this, sometimes if things just don't sell well, we don't get more of them. Those are all of the categories of G1 dolls that we have had so far. Do I think them changing the Skullector naming convention is going to make that big of a splash? We shall see. Maybe Monster High has more tricks up their sleeves that have yet to be revealed. It does feel like, even though it's February, we know so many dolls coming out for G1 in the distant future. Think like we have a lot of leaks. We have the Beetlejuice 2-pack. We have Emily from Corpse Bride leaked. We have the Us dolls leaked. We have the Megan dolls leaked. We have wave 3 of the Creep Productions. We have a new wave of Real Drama with apparently Cleo coming into that wave. We have the Wednesday Netflix dolls coming out as like a wave 2. We have an Elvira Skullector Pride themed doll. Apparently we're going to get another Collector Claudine doll that's maybe like supposed to be similar to Vampire Heart Draculaura. Those are just rumors and leaks. I'm sure there's more that we don't know about. So I don't think Monster High is, you know, pushing the brakes on G1 dolls anytime soon. I do think, however, that they are just trying to fine-tune their release formula and sort of tighten their releases so they have less sort of shelf warmers. But I think the goal for G1 is that, like, for them, from the design team, from the Monster High team, that all of their dolls are popular and sell well. I think ultimately they don't want to make dolls that don't sell. So as fans, you know, we have to put our money where our mouth is, and what we choose to buy is sort of our vote for what we want to see. So I didn't buy Lenore. So as much as I have opinions on the designer series, and as much as I think it's a really good direction for Monster High to go in, I mean, I didn't buy the doll. So I am directly communicating to Monster High and Mattel that, like, I don't like that concept, which is unfortunate because I do like the concept, I just didn't like the doll. But Monster High doesn't know that. All they can tell from me not purchasing the doll is that I don't like the doll, and therefore I don't like the concept. So it's a little bit of a sticky situation here. I think G1 heavily relies on nostalgia, and I would like them to slowly veer away from that. Like I said, we're going to our 6th year of G1 alumni Skullector doll releases. I think they can sort of now branch out and hopefully veer away from just nostalgia bait, but those do seem to be the dolls that are the most successful aside from the IP collaborations, so it's really hard to say. Overall, hopefully all you can get out of this is that I love Monster High, and I think about random things like this way too often, but I love sharing my thoughts and opinions with all of you here on YouTube. So if you had fun today, please like the video, leave a comment down below, any future G1 release that you are hyped for. If I had to pick a rumored doll in 2025 that I'm most excited for, probably Emily. And I've seen a lot of hate for that doll, that her dress looks cheap, the fabric choice is bad. I don't even care. I love Corpse Bride. I love the character. And for me, Skullectors, I really care about the face and the hair. I don't expect much from the fashion, and that's me. if that's not you, that's cool. You do you, but I cannot wait for the Emily doll. I really, really, really want her. So that's the doll release that I'm most excited for, but I'm also just excited for like the unexpected. I really like when, you know, Monster High gives us a curveball and surprises us. Like Vampire Heart Draculaura was such a surprise and it's such a gorgeous doll. So I just want to feel surprised. I want a doll to come out that I didn't even know that I wanted them, but then as soon as I lay eyes on them, I'm like, yes, that's the doll that I need in my collection. Okay, well, that is enough rambling. I took a little bit of a break this past week just because the world's going to shit, and I played a lot of Marvel Rivals. I got to Diamond 2 on Invisible Woman, so I'm pretty proud of myself. I kind of want to hit Grandmaster, but, you know, we shall see. Also, I'm only good at Invisible Woman. Like, I can't play anyone else. Like, it's kind of bad. And then also, I was customizing this little Golia doll. I gave her new eyebrows, painted her lips, painted her glasses. So I've just been playing doll quietly on my own, but I thought I'd come on here, make a interesting, fun, topical video to share with all of you. Well, that is all I have time for. My name is Eli. This is my channel, Draculijah. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all the fun YouTube things, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.